In this section of training, we will preview an Orton-Gillingham lesson. We'll discuss some of the Orton-Gillingham components that you will be observing, offer some teacher tips, and provide some suggestions for delivery. In order to participate in this piece of training, you'll need your lesson plan packet from the front of your manual. One of the characteristics that makes an Orton-Gillingham lesson different from a traditional phonics lesson is the consistency in which lesson plan content is delivered. When we deliver an OG lesson with fidelity, we're able to prevent students from being bogged down by unclear or varying directions. Instead, students can focus their mental energy on learning the content. One of the things that we know from cognitive scientists is that if we use old and familiar procedures to learn new content, our brain can focus on the content. If we need to teach a new procedure, we should do so with familiar content, allowing students to focus their energy and brain power on learning the steps of the procedure. Another difference in an Orton-Gillingham lesson is its intentional design. Each component and its accompanying procedure has a purpose. Instructors should not skip or eliminate lesson components. It is also important that students engage or participate throughout. We offer the following tips for maximizing student engagement. First, maintain a brisk pace. We want it to be quick and challenging enough to require students to exert effort, thus maintaining their interest, but slow enough to avoid any frustration that may cause them to opt out. Second, we encourage use of choral responses. This is applicable in every component of the lesson. As we walk through modeling and demonstrating an OG lesson throughout training, notice how in our group setting we involve all participants through choral responses. If you find that you don't have sufficient time to cover the entire OG lesson as written, we recommend that you scale back the amount of content in each component, rather than eliminate components. For example, if your lesson plan includes 10 words to read, you may need to scale that back to 5 and shorten the time, rather than eliminating the component altogether. On the screen, you see a portion of the Day 1 lesson from your lesson packet. Every OG lesson begins with a review. Review is accomplished in a part-to-whole structure. We begin with a visual drill, reviewing sounds in isolation. We then shift to a blending drill, which uses these sounds to decode syllables. Finally, we read review words. We then shift to fluency. In the fluency component of the lesson, we help students apply all previously learned skills to decode fair, controlled text. After fluency, our attention shifts to teaching something new. In this lesson, students are learning about syllable types, and specifically open and closed syllables. Sometimes the intro new in an OG lesson is a new sound card like SH or DGE. It could also be a new spelling rule or a new suffix. Regardless of what the new topic is, after they have received direct instruction, students will immediately apply that skill in reading words. After the Teach New component of an OG lesson, our attention shifts to the encoding components. Just as we did in the decoding section of the OG lesson, we'll be working on a part-to-whole model, and from review to new. During encoding, we use a student response sheet, or SRS. On the right-hand side of your screen, you see a sample of an SRS. We'll talk in more depth about the SRS later in training. Looking at the left-hand side of your screen, we start off with an auditory drill. In an auditory drill, we're spelling sounds in isolation, much the same way that a visual drill worked on reading sounds in isolation. We then shift to spelling words. In the training lesson, we won't have any review words to spell. However, in most OG lessons, we will spell using previously learned skills and new content. We then shift our focus to memory words. Memory words are words that students do not have the skills to decode or encode. They are either words that are not fair to them yet, or are phonetically irregular. We'll spend more time talking about memory words later in training. The encoding portion of an OG lesson usually concludes with sentence dictation. Sentence dictation is cumulative review. This is the ultimate goal of the encoding portion of the lesson. Can the student write a sentence and apply all the skills that they've learned? In just a moment, you will have an opportunity to observe an OG lesson. We encourage you to read through the training lesson plan for Lesson 1 and look at the materials that will be used in the plan. The passage, "A Red Ant," and the student response sheet on the back of the passage will be necessary to have so that you can participate in the lesson. We encourage you to play the role of the student. Please make notes of any questions. This concludes the preview portion of training.